A remake of a classic film 20-odd years on from the original can lend interesting insights into societal change. How the new Maximus-type character in Gladiator 2 has a dash more sensitivity mixed in with the buffness, for example, or the original being just that, an original and Academy Award winner for Best Picture, while this is yet another rehash, destined to be consumed and forgotten as modern rubbish, the trailer being ratioed because the film looks like ass, and this another criticism construed as arising from bigotry by a flaky media who mount a clumsy cavalry countercharge for something they probably privately don't think is very good. Gladiator 2 was a film directed by an 86-year-old who should have stopped making multiplex movies some time ago, after he helmed 2012's disappointing and muddled Prometheus, and 2017's exasperatingly dumb Alien Covenant, and then 2023's historically dubious and unfocused Napoleon. Overall, the trailer and the film suffer from the same culture war ill will of so much content these days. Criticisms about quality getting lost amid an incorrigible, toxic minority, taking potshots at Denzel Washington as a socially mobile, powerful, and influential black character in ancient Rome. Washington takes on the role of Macrinus, who, by Ridley Scott's own reckoning, is an arms dealer who supplies food for the armies in Europe, so he is a very wealthy man. Instead of having a stable of racehorses, he has a stable of gladiators. He's beautiful, he drives a golden Ferrari. I got him a gold-plated chariot. While this is a kind of weird description, I'm basically fine with the premise. A character of such a background is plausible, though far likelier a Northern African rather than Sub-Saharan type, but it doesn't really matter. Though wealthy and prominent, he hasn't been framed as an accepted member of the patrician classes within Roman social hierarchies. But this is modern Hollywood, and, well, modernity, and the trailer includes a voiceover from Denzel saying, "Rome must fall. I need only give it a push," with an image of him striding into the Roman Senate and caressing the throne, so expect some aggrandizing and affirming twist. Some online critics are also grumbling about Denzel Washington keeping his New York accent in the film. Though this seems a little inane, it is a bit odd if everyone else is maintaining a kind of mannered, theatrical, mid-Atlantic tone, except for one guy. Imagine if, for example, Russell Crowe had retained his strong Australian accent during the original Gladiator film. He would have sounded quite a lot like Robot Head. In fact, with the aid of AI, we can envisage this for real.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, Commander of the Armies of the North, General of the Felix Legions, loyal servant to the true Emperor Marcus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance, in this life or the next.
Gladiator 2 will inevitably have some exhilarating set pieces and box office spectacle, but clumsy characterization and plot, and fall into a hollow between serious filmmaking and disposable, superficial, multiplex product. Strangely, this kind of makes Ridley Scott the ideal director these days, able to cast a wide enough net to just convince serious-minded history enthusiasts who like drama movies, and the hoi polloi of mainstream people who like the Fast and the Furious, and abs, tits, big fights, and action, and are up for something with a bit more gravitas, where they can scroll through TikTok in the cinema during the political stuff, their dumb faces lit up in the gloom by the irritating localized glare of their phones. We know exactly what this film will be because the trailer shows it playing almost beat for beat from the original. The evil Commodus is now represented by a pair of sniveling, camp, and borderline irrational brothers, based off a real pairing from history. An equivalent of Proximo is played similarly by Denzel Washington. Connie Nielsen returns as Lucilla, looking as if she literally hadn't left her seat since the credits rolled in the last film. And Paul Mescal fills the wronged, rising through the brutal ranks Maximus figure. Oh, and Pedro Pascal's in it because he is in practically everything these days, in every format and every genre, being perfectly okay in every role. The Maximus figure uniting the tentative cluster of gladiators against a deadly and theatrical assault, and the far-flung exotic desert territory scenes are all present and accounted for, as are the CGI animals prowling and charging. The original Gladiator was somewhat corny, but it had a bit of depth to it, in that it harkened back to the swords and sandals epics of the 60s, with a little of their charm and tone, and, like Star Wars and Indiana Jones, partly homages to the serials of the 1950s. It took the appealing elements of those and boosted them with lavish modern production techniques, and kept it classy with old stage and screen veterans like Richard Harris as Marcus Aurelius, Oliver Reed as Proximo, Derek Jacobi as Gracchus, and David Hemmings as Cassius. It also featured rising stars perfectly pitched to their characters, Joaquin Phoenix as an affected and neurotic Commodus, and Russell Crowe as a leading man with machismo and presence. The new Gladiator film isn't corny or even cheesy looking. It looks garish, too over the top and melodramatic to be taken seriously. The film will be a failure critically because it is clearly just a derivative rehash that will offer 10% of interesting new scenes and historical reenactments and 90% conventional and pat content. You can already envisage the bland mid-60% critical and 60% audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes. Perhaps the oddest thing about this trailer is the choice of Paul Mescal as a grown-up Lucius. This guy is one of my favorite emerging actors. The film Aftersun, which came out last year, is in my view one of the best films, and certainly the best debut of a director in the last 5 years, and Christopher Nolan agreed. In that, Paul Mescal played a father beset with some deep trauma, which he deals with while bonding with his young daughter during a school holiday trip to Greece. With such a simple premise, the film is rich and resonant and beguiling in its cinematography, slow-burning pathos, and intense tenderness. It is quite common for emerging actors in such roles to want to expand into more commercial territory, but Paul Mescal is absolutely not the right guy for this role. Throughout the trailer, he comes across as oddly subdued, somehow both too intelligent and ironically aware, and too two-dimensional for the character. He has none of the gravitas and presence of Russell Crowe, none of the menacing head-tilted-down, brooding demeanor and slowly raised eyes or depth of register of voice for cool monologues, or Crowe's ability to serve as an ideal avatar for guys to envisage themselves as. I suppose Mescal is the modern equivalent, a little more literal sensitivity to go with a toned-up physique and head-chopping in an era of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Mog being Jedi. I suppose we should take whatever we can get at this point. There has been some controversy about the music, with a rap track playing over the climax of the trailer. One commenter stated, "In terms of music, we've gone from Hans Zimmer to Spotify music." This is kind of the point. It's not a racial thing to most people, but one of quality. Irrespective of genre, the track itself sucks. A generic, made-to-order track about gladiators in the Colosseum. It should be taken in the context of everything in the film being a kind of McDonald'sization of the broad but enthralling original. The film will be a vacant spectacle that will enthrall no one. It is the latest in a redoing of fare from the late 90s and early 2000s, such as Independence Day and Mean Girls. Why anyone would want to revisit that tawdry period in entertainment is a mystery. But here we are.
Oh look, there's no question that New Zealand is by far the best place to live, especially compared to Australia. In fact, everyone here in Australia is secretly jealous of New Zealand. Could anything be worse than being Australian? Crikey!